Well, for the problems that we're going to do for lesson 1.1, we're going to turn to pages 6 and 7 if you have the book with you. And we're doing problems 1 through 35, the odds. Remember that the answers to the odds are found in the back of the book. So if you're at home and you have the book with you, you can always do these problems and check them in the back of the book. We're doing 1 through 35, the odds, and number 41, which is also odd. So a lot of odd problems, you can check them in the back of the book. And if you're in in-person class, I'll be going over these with you. So, and I'll be also answering these on the video. So you've got a couple of different ways to check your answers. But whatever you're doing, you should go through and make sure you're doing the problems first. And these are pretty simple problems, actually. But give all the problems a try and then go through and check your answers. Do not merely write the answers out of the back of the book, as that will not help you at all. All right. Okay, so for number 1, it says, which of the following numbers are integers? And out of that list, remember the integers are the whole numbers and their opposites. So number 9, that's an integer. 3.2 is not a whole number. -1, that's the opposite of 1, so that's a integer. 1/2, that's not an integer. -0.25, not an integer. And 15, an integer. So those are the 3 integers listed in number 1. We're not doing number 2, but we are doing number 3. Which one doesn't belong? Which expression does not belong with the other 3? And explain your reasoning. Well, we have the absolute value of 6, which equals 6. We have just 6, which equals 6. We have -6, which equals -6. And we have the absolute value of -6, which equals -6. Which equals 6. So the only one that doesn't belong is this one right here, because all of the other ones have a value of 6. Even though that one's kind of an ugly 6, we won't make fun of it. Okay, so that's 1 through 3. For these, we should go rather quickly. So number 5, the absolute value of -6 equals 6. For number 7, remember we're just doing the odds, the absolute value of 10 equals 10. For number 9, the absolute value of 13 equals 13. Number 11, the absolute value of -12 equals 12. For number 13, the absolute value of -8 equals 8. For number 15, the absolute value of 18 equals 18. For number 17, the absolute value of -45 equals 45. And for 19, the absolute value of -125 equals 125. For number 21, we have to put less than, greater than, or equal to here. So we have an absolute value of -4 and 7. Now remember, the absolute value of -4 is 4. And we know that 4 is less than 7. So we go back up here, less than. For number 23, the absolute value of -4 again. Seems like they could have been original. And -6. So we know this is 4. We know this is still -6 because there were no absolute value signs. And 4 is greater than -6. So greater than. And for number 25, we have the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of -5. And these are both equal to 5, so they are equal. For number 27, we have to figure out what they did wrong. And they put the absolute value of negative 5 is less than 4. Now, they were probably thinking that negative 5 is less than 4. But we know the absolute value of negative 5 is actually 5, and 5 is greater than 4. So we have to fix their mistake and make it greater than 4. For number 29, the problem reads, you go down 8 floors in an elevator, your friend goes up 5 floors in an elevator. Write each amount as an integer. Well, going down 8 would be a negative 8. And your friend goes up 5, that would be a positive 5. So we wrote each amount as an integer. Each amount as an integer. Number 31, we have to put these in order. So I'm going to write them all exactly how they're written in the book, which is what you should do. Negative 6, negative 7, 8, the absolute value of 5, and negative 6. Okay, and what I do, and what you should do, because we're going to do this, it takes a couple of lines, but then you don't make any mistakes. This value is 6. This value is still negative 7. This value is still 8. This value is 5. This value is negative 6. So we have to go from least to greatest. So we look for the temperatures here. What would be the coldest temperature? The coldest temperature down here, because here are the values of each of these. The coldest temperature is this negative 7. So we go up here, and they gave us negative 7. So there's the first one. That's the smallest amount. I'm going to cross that out. The next coldest temperature would be this negative 6. So I write, because that's what they gave us, negative 6. And I cross that out. Going up in temperature would be a 5 is the next temperature that's cold. Now I don't write 5 because that's not what they gave me. They gave me the absolute value of 5. And I cross that off. The next one, what's colder here? 6. So I'm going to write what they gave me. You're right. It's the absolute value of negative 6. And finally, the biggest one here is 8. And that's what they gave me, 8. So these are in order from least to greatest. And I'm using the symbols that they gave me, but when I put them in order, I was thinking of their values, but I don't put their values in the order. I put the symbols they gave me. For number 33, much like it, and you might think, well, that takes a long time, or that took a lot of paper. Don't worry about it. So we write down what they gave us. Absolute value of negative 34, 21, negative 17, the absolute value of 20, and the absolute value of negative 11. And again, I go down and I put their values. This would just be 34, 21, negative 17, 20, and 11. And what would be the coldest temperature is the way I like to think about it. Negative 17, of course. So I write negative 17. The next coldest temperature would be this 11. I don't write 11 because what they gave me was the absolute value of negative 11. That's what I write. The next one would be this 20, which I don't write because they gave me the absolute value of 20. Then 21, which they did give me, and then 34. But I write the absolute value of negative 34. And they're in order from least to greatest. Number 35, simplifying negative the absolute value of 4. Negatives can also be read the opposite of. So what's the opposite of the absolute value of 4? Well, we know the absolute value of 4 is 4. And what's the opposite of 4? Negative 4. So you can look at it two ways. You can either do this part of the expression first, absolute value of 4, and get 4, and then put that negative out front. Or you can read it the opposite of the absolute value of 4, which is 4, is the opposite of 4, which is negative 4. So negative 4. Well, the last problem, number 41, has 3 parts, and we're talking about those divers under the water. And part A says, write an integer for the position of each diver relative to sea level. Well, the one was 14 feet below sea level, which is negative 14 because he's below sea level. And the other diver is 18 feet below sea level, which is negative 18. For part B, it says, which integer in part A, so here are my 2 choices, is greatest? Well, let's look at these. It doesn't say which one has a greater absolute value, just which of these 2 numbers is greatest. Well, negative 14 is a small number, but negative 18 is even smaller. All right, so we're going with negative 14 is the greatest of these 2 integers. And part C, which integer in part A has the greater absolute value? So which one has the greater absolute value? Well, the absolute value of negative 14 is 14, and the absolute value of negative 18 is 18. So it says which integer, so this integer, negative 18, has the greater absolute value. Compare this absolute value with the depth of the diver. So the absolute value is 18, and the depth of the diver is 18 feet below sea level. So there you go. Now go and do journal page 6 and watch the video and get it done and have an awesome day. See you.